Hey everyone and good day to all. We are the Tenacity of the Careless, first year students of the School of Engineering Block 2. Here we are today to present to you our topic in ethics about legalism.
So hello everyone, at this moment, our group will discuss the topic about legalism. So the general meaning of legalism is it is a strict, literal, and excessive conformity to the law or to a religious moral code. So basically, what handphaisy means is that human beings' self-interest leads to them to make more bad deeds than good in order for them to get what they want. So as a result, rulers and leaders from different places needed to impose strict laws in order for them to control or regulate the acts of humans. But according to Han Feizi, a Chinese philosopher, legalism in ancient China was a philosophical belief that human beings are more inclined to do wrong than right because they are motivated entirely by self-interest and require strict laws to control their impulses.
And for today, I'll be discussing a topic, legalism, specifically its classification. So what we have here is I prepared two common definitions of legalism, and as we go forward, we will find out which classification it fits or belongs to. So let's start. First definition, legalism in ancient China was a philosophical belief that human beings are more inclined to do wrong than right because they are motivated entirely by self-interest and require strict law just to control their impulses. To make it short, the definition just want to say there is that legalism in ancient China was a philosophical belief that the people are more likely to do wrong than right because of their self-interest, and they even need strict law just to control them. So based on the given definition, this is more in line with psychological egoism, wherein we always act within our own self-interest. And this psychological egoism is very similar to what the first definition of our legalism means, where legalism in ancient China is making mistakes because of their own self-interest. And also, based on the definition that they still need a strict law or rule just to control them, we can relate it to the classification of rule utilitarianism, where everyone should follow that rule which will bring about the greatest number of good consequences. They have to follow that rule for them to be restrained because ultimately it will result in the good of all. The last definition says that in Christian life, they have these do's and don'ts and set of moral principles, and that's one form of legalism. This definition, we can relate it to rule utilitarianism, where we take into consideration the consequences that result from following a rule of conduct. A good example here is the Ten Commandments. Christians consider or follow this rule to achieve the greatest good and also for the good of all, so that they don't hurt or trample other people. And something else says in the definition that one is concerned merely with keeping God's law. This statement is applicable to the classification of theology. Literally means thinking about God. That statement is theology because we think of our God and we keep in mind God's law and we follow them. Because for us Christians, it is one of those most important things that should be imprinted in our minds, because if any of those God's law have been violated by us, this will be a great sin to our God. So that's it for the classification of legalism, wherein I prepared some of the common definition of it, then we identified its classification based on what it said. I hope you learned something and have a nice day.
Hello there. The next thing that we will be discussing about legalism is the proponent of this theory. So the proponent that we have chosen is Han Feizi. So who is Han Feizi? Well, he is one of the few legalist philosophers that made legalism as a law or a type of governance that the Chinese had during the Qin dynasty. So Han Feizi was studying under a Confucian philosopher named Sun Tzu, and eventually he deserted the school because of, maybe we could say that they had different points of views in governance, and hindi lang talaga sila magkasundo. So the next thing that we will be tackling is, why did legalism be the type of governance that the Chinese had during the Qin dynasty? So going back to history, well, the Chinese have been in warring states for 200 years, and imagine, it's their reality. Everyday war, every day they wake up, there is war. Lagi na lang may pag-away, siguro because of the land and power. People needed power that time. Eventually, this legalists that time, including Han Feizi of course, they made a law or a type of governance that will control the people. And here legalism was born. So we have here a quote or quotation from the famous Han Feizi that he stated during the Qin dynasty and during his lifetime as a philosopher for Emperor Shi Huang. So he said, "A wise ruler, when he makes laws, is bound to find himself conflict with the world." So it means that if you are a leader of a country and you make laws for the public, you must be very open to criticisms, because not everyone will follow this kind of rule, and there will be protests from the public, because not everyone will like this kind of law or they will abide to it. So when Emperor Shi Huang rose to power during the Qing dynasty, and he was the first emperor of China, he adopted the idea of the legalists, that legalism should be the type of governance that that China should have. So what is legalism again? Well, legalism is a type of governance or law that should be followed by the public. It's because people were driven by their self-interest. That is why they did evil deeds without being punished. So legalism was there to punish those bad things, and people were afraid to do bad things because of this law, because of legalism. And it's because the government had the power over the people, and you could say that it's ruler's authority, because whatever the law that the emperor had made or by his ministers, it must be followed. No one should be everyone should abide through this law. That's what I'm saying. So it evoked fear upon the public, and that's why people at the time during the Qin dynasty in China, they never did bad things. They were too scared. And one thing I would tell you, if you are accused of a crime that you really did, not only you will be executed, but your entire family, even your loved ones. That's how it was really brutal, in order to make the people follow them. Because the legalists believe that people are short-sighted and selfish, and that is because they are driven by their self-interest. Without any law that will stop them from doing bad things, it's like they had the freedom to do those bad things without being punished. That is why legalism was there, to be the controller of the impulses of the people. So that's the story of Han Feizi and how legalism was born through ancient China.
Some philosophers critiques the legalism, and one of them is Tan. In an essay on the essence of the 6 schools of thought, Tan noticed that legalism are strict and have little kindness, and do not distinguish between kin and stranger, nor differentiate between noble and base. Everything is determined by the law. Tan criticized the legalist approach as a one-time policy that could not be constantly applied. In legalism, the laws were very strict and usually had extremely harsh punishments to those who resist the law. In some cases, there are some innocents punished by the thing they didn't do. So equality under the law would not be equal. It would not be applied equally the same to everyone, whereas the king and the homeless person would not be judged the same for the same crime. The legalists advocate government by the system of laws that regularly prescribe punishments and reward for specific behaviors. They stress the direction of all human activity toward the goal of increasing the power of ruler in the state, and it can cause a dictatorship government.
I believe that in certain respects, legalistic societies can be more secure. However, the inquiry is, do the benefits outweigh the blemishes in the system, and are they eventually safer than countries that aren't legalistic? In a legalistic society, there are less wrongdoings perpetrated, starting with one individual, then on to the next individual. However, in other non-legalistic countries, the rate of person-to-person crime is higher. The worry to consider is whether it is safer for people to live in a society fearful of the government or a society that is more fearful of their neighbor. Just for example, our martial law that is declared by Marcos. Social orders that are legalistic are more terrified of the government because the government sets out unforgiving disciplines that are more awful than committing the crime. So the people will be too intimidated to step out of line. For example, in China and America. If you compare the difference between these two countries, the punishment of breaking a law in America to breaking a law in China during the legalistic time, the punishment for murder is less harsh in America because the punishment is just a long time in prison. But in ancient China, if you murder someone, not only you, but your whole family will be executed too. When legalism became the main philosophy in power, they banished any other philosophy and executed any philosophers and writers that created them. They made legalism the practice they had to listen to. They made people's lives revolve around it. The empower ended any opposition and forced everyone to agree with him and to follow the legalistic philosophy. By doing this, he could keep the peoples of China from going against him and keep it in order. So the main benefit of legalism has more of an impact on the entire country on the grounds that the effects of the government of wrongdoings is out there for anyone to see, while just the individual and their family are influenced in non-legalistic nations. Legalistic showed how much force the ruler had over individuals and the land.
Hi, I'm QUEBRAL, and I'm here to talk about legalism taking the human life. Taking of human life is connected to the legalism. Well, first of all, what is legalism? Basically, legalism is all about the tendencies of humans to do wrong than right because of their self-interest. That is why laws are made up to control their impulses. Why would you kill someone if there were no errors with you or if no one ordered? The person should live or die appears to suggest a single general attitude to killing, yet individual differences in many instances of opinions on taking human life raise the question of any empirical support for a theory of such a general attitude. Here are the examples of taking the human life. First, suicide, murder, mercy killing.
Pregnancy is a blessing for those people who wants and who loves to have a complete and happy family. But we can't deny the fact that pregnancy is the biggest problem of those people who are not yet ready in having a baby. Jose Rizal once said, "Kabataan ang pag-asa ng bayan." Pero nasa ng mga kabataan natin? We can see them everywhere carrying a baby, holding their own child, and others are pregnant. How can we call them pag-asa ng bayan if at the age of 15 and up, they've choose to raise their own family, to ruin their own future? But I'm still happy. Kasi hindi lahat ng kabataan ganon. May mga kabataan pa rin tayong matatawag na pag-asa ng bayan. On the other hand, may mga kabataan na maagang nabubuntis, naligaw ng landas, but still, they've choose to go on the right path. They've choose to go on the right way. How? Through abortion. We all know that abortion is the process or procedure to end a pregnancy. It uses medicine or surgery to remove the fetus and the placenta at the uterus. Sa tingin nila, maitatama nila yung pagkakamali nila sa pamamagitan pa ng isa pang pagkakamali. This abortion is under legalism. Why? Kasi papatay ka ng inosente. You're going to kill the innocent child just for your self-interest. Papatayin mo yung bata para sa sarili mo. Papatayin mo yung bata para maging malinis ka. Papatayin mo yung bata para matawag kang dalaga ulit. No. In the first place, it is your fault. You should have been more careful with your action. Kasi alam mo na every action have consequences. You should have known your limitations para walang bata na sisisihin mong sumira ng buhay at pagkatao mo. Buti na lang, we have this Article 256, 258, and 259 of the Revised Penal Code of the Philippines, which mandate imprisonment for those women who undergoes abortion as well as those person who assist the process of abortion.
Lying, cheating, breaking promises, and stealing. These are generally considered to be immoral actions. So in lying, well, it is an intentionally deceptive. So a true lie must have three features. It must communicate some information, be intentionally deceptive or misleading, and the liar must be aware if it is untrue. Of course, if you're the liar, you will know if you're saying is true or not. So, philosopher Immanuel Kant once claimed that lying was always immoral because it is manipulative and disrespects the natural rights of others to make their own decision. To be a lie, there has to be an evil intent and misleading, deceiving, and the evil intent is to gain an unfair advantage. So, I know we are all familiar in lying because some of us have done this. Me too, I have done this before. And now I guess. So, that's why we have white lies, lies of commission, and lies of omission. So, this three has been discussed in our PowerPoint presentation. So, I will not discuss this. So, let's proceed in cheating. So, cheating is breaking the rules. Of course, again, some of us are familiar in this too. Cheating gives some people unfair advantage over others. And we use cheating to talk about being unfaithful. Of course, in a relationship, if you cheat, so you're not faithful to your partner. And if you cheat in your exam, meaning you're a cheater, of course. Respect to the natural rights of others. Also, to make their own decisions. I know some of us are familiar in cheating, but sometimes cheating is not bad. So next, we have breaking promises. Oh, It is so familiar to us, especially to the teen like us or youth. I know some of us have done this, breaking promises like this. So if you're going to go to the school like promising, I will pass my homework tomorrow, sir, I promise. I know that's not true. I know we're not done yet in that assignment. So this topic is relate from that. A promise is a declaration or a vow. So the issue of lying can also be applied to breaking promises. So lying and breaking promises are relate to each other. Now, again, a promise is generally seen as moral necessity. Breaking promises decreases trust, hurt people, and can harm society. So the last one is stealing. When someone deals, a very seldom do it worse. People can see them unless they have an accomplice. This is something you do, hoping that no one will know that you did it. Of course, if you want to steal something, of course, magugustuhan mo talagang walang tao dun sa pagkukunan mo. Kasi nga, you want to steal something. So, alam mo namang gusto mong may kunin, tapos gusto mo rin ng mga tao. So, paano na yung binabalak mo, diba? So, I know some of us have done this, and I have done this before. So, I know how it feels. Let's talk about consequentialist and non-consequentialist. When we say consequentialist, it judges the rightness or wrongness of an action based on the consequences. Again, consequentialist, it judges the rightness or wrongness of an action based on consequences, while non-consequentialist theory of value judges the rightness or wrongness of an action based on properties intrinsic to the action, not on the consequences. Again, the difference of these two are consequentialists are based on the consequences, while non-consequentialists are not based on consequences.
Good day, I'm going to discuss to you the connection of legalism to human sexuality. But before that, what is human sexuality? Human sexuality is about your sexual feelings, thoughts, attractions, and behaviors towards other people. You can find other people physically, sexually, or emotionally attractive. And all those things are part of yourself, of your sexuality. Sexuality is diverse and personal, and it is an important part of yourself, of who you are. You might be drawn to women or men, to both or to neither. There is no right or wrong. It's about what's right for you. And while there are common terms to describe different types of sexuality, you have to adopt a label to describe yourself. Is it true that human sexuality is being abused? Well, there is a tendency that they will be abused because of their improper clothes, improper acts that is not suited in the situation. In this third world generation, a lot of people are not in favor of the third sexuality. They believe that we only have two genders, that is, male and female. And also, others are conservative about this issue because that is their beliefs. But the main point here is this human sexuality is connected to legalism. Legalism involves abstracting the law of God from its original context. Some people seem to be preoccupied in this Christian life with obeying rules and regulations. Legalism in ancient China is philosophical belief that human beings are more inclined to do wrong than right. Because they are motivated entirely by self-interest and require strict law to control their impulses. That is why human sexuality is connected to legalism. The Bible states that only women and men can live on this earth. Woman is for man, and man is only for women. But we cannot force or we cannot teach anyone's heart whoever they love or whatever they feel. But as long as human sexuality is under the law, that is what we should follow.
For today's report, I will discuss what is legalism in my own opinion. So we all know that legalism is derived from the root word legal, which means a consort of elder or an authority. It's a godly word because we have to follow the rules enforced by the law. So the question is legalism still applicable to us today? For me, yes, but it's not for everyone, because some of today are stubborn that even you repeatedly say to follow the rules at this time of pandemic, which is always wear a face mask and a face shield when leaving the house and have a social distancing, is still nothing for them. They just ignored it because of stubbornness, and even authorities do not follow the law. And sometimes, they are even the instigator or the mastermind of the illegal things. But for other people, legalism are important because they just don't want to be harmed and the only think of their welfare.
After discussing the information about legalism, let us now take a look at this reflective question to better understand the said theory. Number 1. Is legalism still practiced today? Number 2. What will be the outcome if an innocent person is charged of crime that he didn't commit and was executed? Number 3. How did legalists believe rulers should govern?
Is it discrimination to terminate a pregnancy because the fetus may turn out to be premature? Consider a society that has elements of legalism, Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism. How can these belief systems work together? What can each belief system contribute to a society to make it healthier, more stable, and better for people?
And that's a wrap. We hope that you have learned something from legalism. Again, we are the Tenacity of the Careless, bidding you stay safe and stay hydrated. Bye-bye.